a transformative leadership strategist and identity coach to high-paying founders and CEOs. He helps leaders eliminate noise, unlock confidence, and lead with soul-aligned clarity. With his playbook, Leaps, he's redefining what real influence and velocity look like in business, and he's all about the syndrome that is imposters. Welcome to Leadership That Sells, the podcast that helps you lead first and sell more. Great sales teams need great leaders, but too often sellers become managers without the right training or support. And that's why we built the Leadership That Sells playbook. You can check it out at the Practical Leadership Academy. Markus Neukom, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Paul. Huge pleasure.
So that was a very short and sweet introduction. What did I miss?
Pretty much named it.
Oh, good.
The one thing, if you would talk to people who know me, they would say one thing. Markus doesn't teach anything else than he actually experienced himself. So I'm pretty much embodiment of my philosophy.
Well, that's a rare thing, a very rare thing. It is very easy.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, you'll have hosted these things as well as the sort of management roundtables or whatever it is, some expertise roundtable. And you talk about, and this is the situation we're talking about, and we should do that. It's always that. This is what should be done. And it's always passive. It's never, I did this and it worked. Or even better in some cases, I did this and it bloody didn't. I failed.
You know, that's interesting. I was on a conversation recently, Paul, and someone said to me, but Markus, how can it be people are? And then I said, are they? He said, yes, people are. We are grown-ups. And I said, are they? And then he actually said it. People should be.
Yeah.
And I said, now you nailed it. And now we have the foundation for our conversation. And I think it was a turning point of his podcast session, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So much pretense and so much assuming.
Yeah.
And we're basically kidding ourselves and each other. And we're surprised that we don't have authenticity. So that was the missing part, by the way.
No, okay, I'll take that. We can run with that a lot. I think, especially in the commercial world, it's very easy to find people where you want them to be, to think about people where they should be, and not actually listen carefully enough to find out where the hell they are, and who you are, and what's important to you. Oh, you're a insert job here. That means these things should be important to you. You can make assumptions. It's great. You can do that because you can do that to lead to, well, no, actually, this is important to me. And that's fine. It's a technique. It's a tool. But too often you do it and you're not listening to understand. You're listening to get your response in. You deal a lot with imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. And for everyone, I think, but particularly for salespeople, it's debilitating. Whether it's I don't think I'm good enough to pick up the phone, so it's call reluctance. I don't think. And I think that the challenge is, how do you go over that? I don't think, I'm not sure, maybe it's not me. Maybe I'm lucky. Maybe there's all these different types. I think it all boils down to a big bucket of pain. Talk us through.
You actually hit the solution before you even ask the question, Paul. Because they're right. They think, so they are. And why they think is because they believe it. And because they believe it has become reality. Exactly. Now we have the 360. Mm-hmm. And you see, I said in the intro that I don't teach anything. I don't coach anything. I don't preach about anything that I have not experienced myself. So during COVID, I think all of your viewers and listeners remember that when the pandemic hit, everybody around me was in depression. And I lasted for quite some time because now I'm an avid meditator, and that really helped. And then it suddenly hit me. And 18 months later, a client of mine said to me, Markus, you have become so unbearable, because I suddenly realized, gosh, I was 18 months in a depression. And it took me 9 more months to recover, by the way.
Mm.
I think that's what's called a burnout.
Got
Was
it.
my third, by the way. So I got to a point where I literally asked myself, should I even continue? Not to live, but should I even continue to teach? Should I continue to guide people? I mean, I am now at the lowest.
Mm.
You know, we consultants, we used to be Teflon. Everything is fine, right? Like we are beacons of the industry. Absolute BS. So I got to a point that I asked a dear friend of mine, what should I actually write about if I even still do LinkedIn? And that friend gave me 10 possibilities. Number 7 hit me like this: imposter syndrome. So that's an odd thing, but at the same time, it resonated so much with me. So I started writing about it. And, you know, I believe it came from my soul. I think I literally used the mirror when I wrote, and feedback literally confirmed what I was writing. And then suddenly 2 friends of mine reached out and said, Markus, I totally resonate with the symptoms of this imposter syndrome thing. Honestly, imposter syndrome itself, not so much at all. So I knew, okay, if these 2 thoughtful gentlemen were 2 men, these thoughtful gentlemen have an issue with the imposter syndrome as the cause of those symptoms, there's truth behind it. So I started researching, and I asked the universe, what is it? And the universe suddenly gave me the answer and said, Markus, imposter syndrome is a trick. Imposter syndrome is a decoy to hold us back, to tap into the real truth. So the real truth is, Paul, imposter syndrome is nothing else than a symptom for a much, much worse problem.
Mm.
And it's called authenticity struggle. So if you look where we started with the circle, with the 360, let's open the circle once again. If I say it is true because you believe it, and you believe it becomes your reality,
Yes.
the reason why is because you don't know yourself.
Mm.
The reason why is because I had no bloody clue who I really was. And that's when I remember, gosh, when I started teaching 20 years ago, I suddenly had that methodology, which I called self-doubt, self-confidence, self-worth. And I realized that self-awareness or self-confidence is absolutely built on a fallacy. It's built on what my environment mirrors me, I am. And I'm absolutely sure if I would ask your viewers and listeners, where did you get the foundation from? Would you believe you are today? Would you basing your truth on? Would you basing your skills on? Everything else? Probably 95%, Paul, from outside.
Mm.
So the problem is the authenticity struggle comes there. Now imagine if you do not know what you should be basing your trust on. Let me give you an example. I have a dear friend. He's a mountaineer at the Mount Everest. He calls me up, and I know you're an avid mountain climber yourself, Paul, and I extend the offer. You know, my dear friend Sepuan said, bring Paul, come to Himalayas, and let's go up to the base camp. Would you trust me? Yes, you would.
Totally.
Because this is a guy who I know for so long. Now the same scenario. Last night I went to a bar, had some Guinness too many, and I met this guy. And this guy said to me, hey, bring your friend. I get you up to the base camp of Mount Everest. It was him, Markus. Are you bonkers? Are you nuts? Like, you really had some too many last night. So what it comes down to is we have this guy or this girl who we met at the bar, drunk, leading us on a daily basis, making us believe that's who we are. So no wonder do we not trust that what we believe we are. We are doubting it constantly. You're with me, I can tell. Because that's exactly what it comes down to. We are trusting a drunken guide in us. which has been intoxicated by all the BS that's coming from outside. And as you probably know, even our spouses not always have our best in mind when they put something into us, right? Now think about the people who don't like us, the people who envy us. They give you a complex so they look less negative.
Oh, yeah. Very human.
Right, very human, right? So that's when I realized, gosh, the authenticity struggle is the real problem. So if you give me 1 or 2 more minutes, then I end that first thing. Then I realized, what do you call that veil between atmosphere and space? Like the thing where a rocket goes through where they usually would burn,
Yeah.
Let's call it the veil. Let's call it the veil for a moment. Okay.
Veil, yeah.
So I realized the imposter syndrome, what it is, especially in sales, it is an innate talent people have, right? And then they go to sales school. And then they get filled with all the bullshit methodologies and the strategies and the tactics. Guess what? Suddenly their innate beauty of being able to just touch people, to open doors, gets absolutely diluted. Now they have to learn scripts. Now they get on a phone call and they have to memorize that stupid thing instead of knowing, gosh, it's another person who wants to be seen, who wants to be understood, who wants to be recognized. So that's how I sold, by the way, when I was young. So what it came down to is me seeing at the veil, you have this lofty goal up here. So you come up with a little rocket and suddenly the sun gets very hot. Complex kicks in and you shrink and you go down again. Guess what, Paul? You never go as high as the first time. So let me flip the scenario. Have you ever seen a flea circus?
Well, I think I have.
A flea circus is the most brutal thing you can imagine. They literally put fleas into a glass, put a lid on it. That little flea jumps much, much higher than the glass, several times as high as the glass, hits his little brain all the time until it's so fed up of that pain that it says, you know what? Actually, I'm not stupid. I don't jump even as high as the lid anymore. I don't even touch that lid anymore. Guess what? You can remove the lid. That flea will never jump higher than where the lid was. Guess what? Human conditioning.
Totally.
Absolutely. Take an elephant, baby elephant, gets with this little stick. The little stick is enough to hold a grown-up elephant because it's conditioned as a baby that I cannot pull this stick away. A grown-up elephant still believes it. It could actually just lift its trunk and that thing would be gone. So you see, and this is where I draw the parallel. We human beings, once we start detecting who we really are, once we start looking at the innate talents as a salesperson, for example, or as a sale leader, it's when the remembrance starts kicking in. And this is basically what I'm doing. I'm a legacy alchemist. I help people to remember who they really are and not build a legacy that they can leave behind one day. But I work with people who want to live their legacy every single moment from now on until their dying breath. So you see, it's the authenticity struggle. So the imposter syndrome is a death sentence. You're screwed if you believe in imposter syndrome. Literally screwed. Because if you have a syndrome diagnosed, you're lost. Simply, you're lost.
Totally.
I close.
Totally. Magnificent. Bravo. Love it. Absolutely love every word. Every word.
Appreciate it, Paul.
Your allusions for animals. You can extend the idea of how animals behave. The well-known elephant story, and you look at how humans actually behave as well. Have you heard of the crab bucket? You ever been fishing for crabs? And
nope.
You basically put a string with something in it, a bit of meat or something into the water, pull the crab out, pull another one out, and you get a bucket full of crabs. Occasionally, a crab will crawl up and get to the top. The other crabs look at that and go, oh! And what do you think happens? They think, I can escape too. No.
Yeah.
They all grab onto the bottom of this one crab, they pull it back down.
Yes.
pull it back down among them. They refuse
Did
to
they
allow it
do
to escape.
that?
They do that. Your,
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that.
your concept of authenticity, I think it requires a clear understanding of your own identity. Breaking out
Yes.
of this externally reinforced world for you to be successful, however you want to define success, for you to be wealthy, however you should and could define wealth, and it's rarely to do with money. You have to, I think, recognize that most things of value start from inside. Whether it is, if you believe, as I do, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that gives you this, you have grace, you have this magnificent confidence because we are of and from God. But your identity, if you ascribe it to anything external, can be taken, morphed, changed, thrown away, burned up at a moment's notice. I used to introduce myself. Hello, I'm Paul. I'm Senior Vice President of Important Things at Big Company. Until one day, poof,
And
all
you
gone.
believed it.
It was all gone. It was all
That
gone.
was the thing. Yeah.
I was blessed that about a year or two before that, I came to the conclusion that that's not where identity lies. And that if I perpetuated my internal myth that identity lies in the external, when it goes or changes, as it is bound to do, of your own agency or not, you will grieve the loss of that. So in order to overcome that, you then have to change. You have to change and make these things internal. What is it? Who are you? Well, and I make the point because I talk about this a lot, as you do. Would you like to introduce yourself? And you tell the story. Well, I used to introduce myself like Paul, the important thing. But now I say, I'm Andrea's son. I'm Catherine's husband. I'm the father of. I am a Christian who goes to church. I am a keeper of a 1972 bright red MG midget car. I fly kites. I bake sourdough bread. I like music. I drink scotch and smoke cigars. These are the things that are. Oh, and by the way, I also do some business stuff. And I don't take myself very seriously, but I take what I do very seriously. That is a package of identity that allows you to walk step by step on the journey that we go on, which is the thing that matters, which is the thing that allows you to share, to teach, to mentor, to collaborate, to learn without being at risk. You can still take risks, but you're not at risk, if I'm clear about that. So I think you want to understand people, which we all want to do, exactly as you said. You first look in the mirror. You first look in the mirror. Legacy alchemist. I love that.
Thank you.
What does a legacy alchemist do on a daily basis?
Basically, does help people remember.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally what I'm doing.
Uh-huh.
You see, imagine if we look at it from an earthly standpoint. I can walk into a company and I can teach them how to hire top talent. And they pretty much understand it's not a God-given talent, it's an art form. You have to learn, right? And then once they have hired the right talents, I can teach them how to bloody keep them. And that's even more difficult. And then I can help them to coach their A players so they don't leave because those are the A players driving the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, it all comes down to one question when I work with someone. Is this as good as it gets? Or is there more to my life?
Mm.
And when I ask that question, that's usually when the sacred space starts opening.
Yeah.
And then it's when I say, look, you are a high achiever, and it takes one to know one. You are more, having more, having more, having more, having more, having more, having more. You basically have everything. But now you realize there must be more than just having all. And that's when I help high achievers to move into future defining leaders. That's when they realize it's not about me. It's not about my partner. It's not about my company. It's not even about my family. It's not about my tribe. And then it becomes about legacy. And that's when I say, look, why wait until your dying breath to leave a legacy behind? Why not live it right now? Like I literally said to my friends at a very young age, Paul, I could leave the earth at any given moment and I have lived my legacy.
Mm.
And this is a gift. But this is what I'm here for on this earth, to help people to live their legacy, to remove all the BS. You know, sometimes I say basically we're living in a simulation called world. And on that world, we are here to learn and to heal, to remember who we really are. That's what the legacy alchemist does, Paul.
You've talked about, we're talking about imposter syndrome here, specifically in the sales environment, about that authenticity that is required, that I call it the understanding of identity. We're talking about this legacy, living this legacy. These are huge, huge concepts, huge.
Yeah, we can break it down very simple.
That's what I'm going to get to.
Yeah.
Because in order for us to actually make this practical for a salesperson, sales leader, how do you move from being reactive all the time to everything that's going on around you, to being rooted, to being grounded, this sort of solid grounding? How do we do it? How do I keep it front in mind?
Yeah.
Especially
So let
under
me put it
pressure.
very
Go
simply.
on.
Let me put it very simply. The key is know thyself.
Yes.
Literally, know thyself. You know, that's what it comes down to. Know thyself. And the thing is, if I look at what people base their foundation on what their foundation consists of, as I said, it's basically all those mirrors they received all their lives. And not knowing your terrain where you stand on, that can't be feel really, really safe at all, right? So the key is literally, and this is the surrender pole, which so many people have an issue with. Like I speak with people who are 25. I speak with people who are 52. I speak with people who are 75. My oldest client, a dear friend, was 83 because he said to me, Marcus, work with anyone else, but please not with me. I will die soon. And I said, you know what, my friend, even if you live only for a week, it's wasted. And he said, Marcus, let's do it. And he lived for a couple more years. So what it comes down to is literally admitting, even at my age, you know, my birthday will be in a couple of weeks, 53 years old. I have no clue who I really am. I have shifted through life from success to success to success. I never took the time to reflect. And if I had taken the time to reflect, I wouldn't have known how. So a legacy alchemist helps to reflect. Reflection leads to remembering. Like what I'm doing in very classical terms, I sit down with a client and I say, look, let's look at your past successes. Let's take one of them which just comes to mind you're proud of, and let's deconstruct that success. Let's deconstruct that one phone call you had, which everyone else believed is impossible to land that deal. The other where you went to a client where it was on knife's edge, whether you're going to lose that sale. But it was your authenticity to admit, I did something wrong. I'm so sorry. I missed that piece in our conversation. And your admittance actually led to landing the deal. So what I do is I deconstruct their successes, which makes them remember. And now guess what? Now I can say, look, let's do it with many different successes. And that's something anyone can do at home. Literally take one success, deconstruct what led to it. And once you have that, it's almost like a homeopathic doctor, Paul. You have 100 ingredients, and then you learn how to mix those different ingredients so you have them handy at any single moment when a new challenge calls. Like if somebody asks me, Marcus, how is it possible that some clients work with you for 7 years? Don't they get it by now? So of course they do. But they always say the same thing. Marcus, having a Sherpa as experienced and as skilled as you climbing the Mount Everest with, it's a little bit cooler than actually doing it myself, even if I know how to do it, or go with my peers.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Literally remembering what led to that success. And then these people suddenly understand, gosh. So I would love to end the story because it wasn't ended there. So I suddenly asked the universe, what really happens when we actually turn around and shrink because the sun gets too hot? It says because you bought into the fallacy of today's society. Because then I heard a little wee beautiful voice said, Marcus, you know what? When imposter syndrome hits you, it's actually a compliment by life, from life, because it shows you it's worth the while what you're doing. So all you need to do is close your little eyes and just trust that you can crash through that veil. You land in space, and in space you suddenly realize, gosh, it's amazing. Here's freedom. Here's freedom. Here, everything is possible. So once, basically you can say, I am taking people on a space journey. I help them to fly through that veil. And once they're in space, I help them literally maneuver their ultimate, literally, people say to me sometimes, Marcus, you're such a dreamer. Yeah, I am. But I believe it's true. We have an absolutely endless potential. It's all up here, which limits our potential. But I believe, you probably remember the late Robert Schuller from Crystal Palace. He said, Crystal Cathedral, he said, if you can dream it, you can do it. Because nothing that comes to mind is just from somewhere. It's actually from somewhere. So I believe if we have a vision, if we have a dream, and if we are willing to pay the price and are willing to admit, I just don't know anymore, but I need to remember that literally every single thing is possible.
I think we have to end it there. Markus Neukom, for whom everything is possible, thank you for convincing us that for us, anything is possible. Thank you very much indeed for joining me.
My dear pleasure.